Round 12 is officially over and there are 12 rounds to go in the 2024 home and away season. So let's do a midpoint check-in. Am I buying, holding or selling your club's stocks ahead of the second half of the home and away season? Let's find out. Kicking things off with selling the Adelaide Crows. They're not playing finals this year. They're putting guys who aren't midfielders into the midfield, while guys like Billy Dowling, who had 30 disposals, 6 inside 50, 7 tackles in the sandful last week, will continue to ply their trade. He just has to come in, and they have to play the kids now. That 27-point loss to the Hawks, they were pretty bad throughout that game. The 4.5 goals might be a little bit flattering, but they were not good for large periods of that game, I should say, on Saturday at the MCG. So the Crows, they're kind of stuck in no man's land right now, and if they want to get out of it as quickly as possible, they've got to give these guys they've drafted in the last few years a chance. Billy Dowling, Zach Taylor, Charlie Edwards, these guys that if they are putting up a performance or two and they've got some form in the sandful, sorry to the veterans, you had your chance, you're not taking us to the promised land. Go back and find it at Sandful and let's give these kids a go. So the Crows for 2024, they're gone. And so Brisbane, to be completely honest. Now, I don't think they're as gone as the Crows are, and I still think that they can make a run. Or look, I'm not even selling them in terms of their finals capabilities. Could they sneak in there? Potentially. The top 8 at the moment is looking very shaky, apart from probably 2 teams, in all honesty, that being Sydney and maybe even Carlton for mine, whereas they're not even 1 and 2. I know Sydney are on top. But as we hit this point in time, Brisbane just don't look anywhere near their form of last year. I don't think the holding the ball rule helps them much, but they did have the bye. We didn't see them with the new rule, but you've got to be quick, you've got to be fast, you've got to go to take advantage, especially between the arcs with the holding the ball rule. I just don't know if their midfield can do that, so I'm off the Lions at the moment. For the Blues, who on the weekend just made a bye all the more confirmed. For every reason, I keep thinking that Carlton just may not be where they should be. They continue to prove me wrong. Port Adelaide left that door ajar for them, and they absolutely smashed it in on Thursday night. I think it was Thursday night or Friday night, whichever day they played. No, I think they were first Thursday night. They were against Port Adelaide. That was such an impressive win. Their second win at Adelaide Oval ever. Their first over a South Australian team. Their captain, wowee, Zach Williams up forward gives them a new dynamic. Their defense looks really solid. Now that McGovern and Sard are back there, they are looking in tip-top shape at the moment. So in terms of not only getting back to potentially where they were last year, that being, of course, the 2023 prelim finals, I am also thinking that the Blues can do a little bit better than that. And of course, they've still got guys to come back, so we'll see how they go. Looking forward to seeing how Zach Williams and Jesse Motlop, if they can work well in the same forward line. And Tom De Koning is just blossoming in front of our eyes. We go to Collingwood, and I am holding firmly on the Pies at the moment. Fully fit. Still think they're one of the best teams in the competition, and I don't think their injury list is as big of an excuse than, the Western Bulldogs, who had injuries before the game, but also had injuries during the game as well. So yes, whilst Collingwood's 22 may not have been of the highest quality, the Dogs lost players on the night. Therefore, I'm not really buying that a club that could get so far out in front early, and let's be honest, should have put the game away at quarter time, let that slip by 3 goals and go, well, look at who we had out. I don't know if that excuse flies with me. Fully fit, I still think they're a grand final caliber team. I think the new holding the ball rule just helps them magnificently. But holding on the Pies at the moment, definitely can see them making finals though. For the Bombers, I'm going to go with a hold here as well, purely and simply because I think they're better than a lot of other footy fans do. This whole fraudulent second place thing, considering we've had opening rounds buys, the ladder is not trustworthy, but I don't think they're worth bashing over. They've still been really good. You can only play who's in front of you. They didn't pick their fixture. I don't care how easy it looks. They can only do what they can do, and they're doing it beautifully. Up at the Gold Coast, they were fantastic. Think what you will of the 50-metre penalty, but my argument is, if you kick 14-11 instead of 11-14, you win the game by 5 points. Control what you can control, kick the goals. They had 4 main offensive weapons, so I think it was Nick Martin, Jake Stringer, a couple of others as well, that kicked 0 goals 10 on the weekend. Kick 2 of those, you win the game. So that's what's in your control. I still think the Bombers are a good football team, but I'm not willing to buy them as a preliminary final team. I also don't think they're going to drop out of the 8 at this point. So we'll see how they go. In terms of Freo, I'm officially on board. Bye. Getting on the bandwagon. Just score, guys. You're now 6 wins and a draw, 0 losses, scoring over 68 points. That's how you win football games. And that's what they did up at Alice Springs. They walked into that football ground, bitch-slapped Melbourne, and moseyed on out there. Midfield was fantastic. Sam Switkowski, as a midfielder, looks fantastic at the moment, which is fantastic. But they're adding some dynamics to their game. Can't really hang shit on any forwards for not scoring when you load up on 141 points against the Ds. They were fantastic, the Dockers, and deserve every bit of plaudit that hopefully coming their way. We'll see how that goes. But you can have it from me, Dockers fans. You were extraordinary. I'm holding on Geelong because outside of May, they're undefeated. In May, they were horrible, obviously. But look, they beat the Tigers, which is fine. I've got no real problem with the 10-goal turnaround. They were a bit sluggish. They came back. If they do that against another side, any team on their day can catch you out. So that's not as a big a concern for mine. Again, my concern is that midfield group. How are the forwards going to gel? But also, you don't want to be playing your best footy right now. So I feel like I'm kind of the middle of the spectrum for the Cats. There's some that think they're just going to be fine. They've had their slump. Still a contender. There's those that are like, well, I don't even see them as a top 8 side. I'm probably somewhere in between. Probably 5th, 6th at this point in time. They'll win enough games to get in. What are they going to be like in the finals? Unpredictable. If they finish 5th, 6th, I think they'll win their first final and probably go down to maybe like a Carlton, who I know they've had some good history against, even though I think the Blues won their last encounter. But it's going to be fun to see where the Cats go. And if you're a Cats hater, as I should be as a Hawthorn fan, but I'm hating them sort of less and less as time goes on, who knows? But that's why they're the epitome of a hold at the moment. I'm also holding Gold Coast, but for a different reason, because in Queensland, they're awesome. So someone did correct me because they did lose at the Gabba. I should have said at home, but in Queensland and Northern Territory, they are now 7 wins and a loss, with the loss coming at the Gabba. Whereas they've lost all their games outside of Queensland and the Northern Territory. So, massive problem. Start winning on the road. I will buy you. You're not doing that. I will hold, and you're doing beautifully at home. That's not a sell. They're the beautiful epitome of hold at the moment, I should say. This might be a little bit controversial. I'm going buy with the Giants. I think the buy here came at a really good time. B-Y-E in this case, not B-U-Y. I'm buying B-U-Y, but let's move on before we go down an intellectual spiral here. I think they're going to be better coming out of the buy. So this is probably one of the more, I'm looking into the future more than what I'm seeing on paper at the moment. Calls, but I love where they're at. I love their side. If they can settle, get their stoppage game going, they are going to be there, and I'm going to predict that they are, hence the buy. The Hawks, I'm buying the Hawks as well. You'd be pretty silly not to at this point in time. Now, I'm of the belief that if Mitch Lewis was fully fit and fully firing, this team plays finals the way that they are going. Got a bit of a rough fixture to start, the Hawks, but again, you don't pick your fixture, you can only beat who's in front of you. They're doing so. If they win that Port Adelaide game, they're only a game out of the 8. Yes, albeit with poor percentage. I know, rough start. But they're playing really good footy at the moment. And I'm going to talk about how the holding the ball rule changes affect the Hawks in a video, whether that'll come out tomorrow at the time of publishing or Wednesday. We will wait and find out. But I'm loving what the Hawks are doing. And my man, Dylan Moore, 27-5, baby. Love what he is doing. Melbourne, look, how do you not sell a little bit? Their forward line structure's a mess, a genuine mess. And down back, everything fell apart. Now, am I of the opinion we've got to give clubs a mulligan? Yes, I am. Is this their mulligan? I don't think so. They should have beaten Carlton, you would think, in that comeback game. They didn't. They've had a couple of other losses by big margins, albeit not the 92-point margin. That was the game against the Dockers, but I just have no faith in Melbourne at the moment. I didn't really, going into that game, tipped Freo with some confidence. I was thinking about locking the Dockers in the work comp. I didn't. I did not. But we go from there. Melbourne, not a fan at all. I'm also selling North. We all know why. You can't hold or buy a team that hasn't won a game yet. They are going to win a game at some point. I reckon they've got a couple of really good opportunities in the next month, 6 weeks or so, and the pressure will build until they eventually get there, so we'll wait and see. But also, I don't think Luke Davies-Uniacke is going to be there at the start of next year. It's just an opinion I've got. So if they start losing their best players, where is it coming from? I don't really know. 18-year-olds are going to be the answer in 5 years' time. They're not going to be the answer now. So in terms of 2024, selling any North stock I may have, and I don't think I've got that much to begin with, to be honest. We go to Port Adelaide, and I am a firm hold for everything they do right. They do things wrong badly. Their setup behind the ball is just not good, and the holding the ball rules is going to expose them for a lack of intercepting game. Whereas a team like Hawthorn, and I know they beat the Hawks, so I'm not saying for better or worse, what the Hawks have been managing to do so well over the last 6 weeks is they've been able to leave their opponents create numbers behind the ball and get their intercept game going. Hawthorn are a top 4 team in intercepts in both their forward half and their back half over the last 6 weeks, whereas Port Adelaide play a very one-on-one style. So if you get a quicker team, which Carlton proved to be in that last quarter, but also you look at your Sydneys, maybe even the Giants in full flight, these types of teams, they are going to bury a defensive structure like Port's in the right conditions because they want to play acreage territory and not really get over and help each other as much as athletic freaks like Aliir and Asava Radaglia should. And then on the ground, you've got Burton and Bergman who should be floating in, not really giving that much assistance at all. Really didn't in the last quarter against Carlton, and look what happened. So Port, can they make the 8? Yep. Am I buying them as a contender? No, not at all. And I'm not buying Hawthorn as a contender either, but in terms of where they're at now versus what they are at the end of the year, Port are a hold for mine. I like what I've seen from Richmond the last couple of weeks. I am holding them. They do have the injury list. I understand that. And when you're a young team that needs a rebuild, which obviously Richmond do, having that injury list is not great, whereas you can test the depth of good teams like Collingwood and maybe even the Bulldogs, depending on how well you see them. They've got the second best percentage in the comp and they're not in the top 8 at the moment, so think of that what you will. Definitely a talented list there, whereas a team like Richmond can't really do that. Adam Uze is a good coach. Again, rough start. Damien Hardwick had a rough start, lost his first 9 or 10 before finally getting his first win. It worked out okay. I'm not saying Uze is going to be a 3-time premiership coach. He is a good coach, and his cattle do play for him. Kane McAuliffe looks like an absolute gun. They still need more out of their senior players. Managing Dion Prestia was a weird decision, but he is injury prone. They've got a huge injury list. I understand that. For 2.5 quarters of footy down at the Cattery, they were fantastic, so it will come together for the Tigers. But in terms of what I thought they'd be at the start of the year to where they're at now, to where I think they can get to at the end of the year, a healthier Richmond will be a more dangerous one coming home, and I can almost guarantee they are going to ruin someone's top 8 chances in the last month of the season. We go to the Saints, though. I'm selling the Saints versus what they could be. They were in my 8 at the start of the year, which was dumb, straight up. And there's a litany of reasons, I should say, of why I had them in my 8 originally. None of them panned out, and it is internally their fault. It's my fault for believing in them, don't get me wrong. Not laying any excuses here, but the way that Ross has coached, the game plan, all these things has been really bad. And if Hawthorn want to go chase Josh Battle, I'm going to be very okay with that. Don't you worry. But I am really looking forward to seeing the Saints off-season. How are they going to approach the next few years? Because right now they look like they're in no man's land. Will it be a fire exit? Will it be go back to the draft? Darcy Wilson's been good. I've still got faith in Mateus Philippou. I hope we can see Ollie Houghton come the back end of the year, start of next year. Can't wait to find out what's going on there. But right now, in terms of 2024, they're nothing but a hold. Sydney are a buy. Do we even need to explain why? They're the best short-kicking team in the competition. The holding the ball rule is going to make them better. And honestly, I do not see them losing more than 2 games come the back end of the year. And look, they've got one hand on the cup. It's whether they can reach over and grab it on the other side. In terms of teams that can stop them, I think at this stage, GWS and Carlton are the best chances. I also think a fully fit Collingwood round out the top 4 beautifully in terms of power rankings come the end of the year. Anyone can get anyone on their day, but right now, Sydney are that far in front, it isn't funny. I am sorry to Swans fans who are like, can anyone talk about us for a long period of time? But when you're flying and everything's going well, it's not that you become boring or irrelevant, but it's more like, look at what they're doing. That's how good they are. There's nothing better, I don't think, many people can give other than the eye test. Everything's working. Look at it, right? Whereas you've got a team like West Coast, for example, and I'm a little bit higher on West Coast than most people think. I am a buyer of the Eagles at the moment. Yes, away from home they stink. Does. What about Gold Coast? Gold Coast are better, so relax. But at home, they are a dogged team. We know about Harley. I do like some of their other youngsters as well. Waterman didn't play on the weekend. If he does, they probably win that game against the Saints. I'm not going to lie to you, but I think they are building something quite nicely. Adam Simpson has given a firm middle finger to those that doubted him last year, myself included, so I'm happy to put my hand up there, and he's doing a really, really nice job. I still think they are a lot of pieces away from becoming a contender, but in terms of what I thought they could be at the start of the year versus where they are versus where they could get to at the end of the year, if they're competitive in all their home games, they've already exceeded expectations, so I'm a buyer there. And I'm also a holder on the Bulldogs. I think their last month has been awesome. That was a great win against the Pies on the weekend. But this isn't even a Bevo slight here. This is your percentage is over 120. You're not in the top 8. Their biggest problem is mentally. Can they mentally break down some walls and go from there? Ed Richards in the midfield worked really nicely. Garcia in the midfield worked really nicely. You cannot have your mix of Bontempelli, Treloar. You can't have accumulators in your midfield anymore. Adelaide, are you listening? But Bontempelli, Treloar, Libba, McRae can't work as your first 4. You need speed, you need outside run, you need guys that can break a line. Treloar can do that. We know the Bont can do that, but Libba and McRae can't really anymore. And I think that midfield balance is something that they're going to have to get really right. They are seemingly doing so. So loving where the Bulldogs are at, but I'm not willing to put that emotional investment in just yet. In a fortnight's time, who knows? So that is a quick wrap-up of where your club is at. Buy, hold, sell, come the end of 2024. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Which clubs did I get right, wrong? You agree with, you disagree with? Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe to join the Daz Talks Footy family. And I'm going to try and do more videos this week. I appreciate everyone who jumped on board. Has the holding the ball rule been better? Video, YouTube just... Saturday probably isn't the upload day, so it is what it is. But we live, we learn, we move on. If you want to watch it, I would really appreciate it if you did so. Hope the start of your week has been fantastic and it continues to be so, because you're an absolute legend. You deserve to be the happiest person you can be. I'll see you next time, guys. Goodbye.